Hello students, we are moving into our next unit, which is Geography of Latin America. And for this unit, we are going to be covering 3 different chapters. So we're going to kind of bounce around a little bit between chapter 3, chapter 5, and chapter 7. So chapter 3 is about Mexico, chapter 5 is about Central America, and chapter 7 is about South America, which are the 3 subregions of Latin America. So we're going to start here with chapter 3, section 1, Mexico's geography, and we're going to be looking at 1.3 Western Mountains and Deserts, which is page 82 in the textbook, and under the heading Landforms and Climate. And number 1 is, what is a cordillera? And so I will begin reading here. I'm actually going to start at the very beginning and then go into landforms and climate. Mountains and high plateaus cover much of the western United States and Canada. These landforms create natural barriers to western coastal regions and offer plentiful resources in some areas. Landforms and climate. The main landform in the western part of the region is the Cordillera. The Cordillera is a system of several mountain ranges that often run parallel to one another. In North America, the Cordillera includes the Rocky Mountains and the Sierra Nevadas. In the United States, the area between the Rocky Mountains and Sierra Nevada mountains is the Great Basin. A basin is a depression in the surface of the land. The Great Basin is a desert, a dry, often sandy area with little rainfall or plant life. So we are going to be able to answer this first question based on what we just read there. And so what is a cordillera? We have here highlighted as a vocabulary term that this is a system of several mountain ranges. And then it talks about the 2 mountain ranges that make up the Cordillera in the United States. So remember that these are mountain ranges that also often run parallel to each other. So like this, here's one mountain range, here's the other mountain range. And so in North America, we have the Rocky Mountains and the Sierra Nevada. So on your notes, you have a bullet mark there. So you can go ahead and put yours next to that bullet. When you click enter, another bullet should appear. So Rocky Mountains and Sierra Nevada. For our next question there, we're going to have to look at the map that's on page 78 in the textbook. So I'm going to enlarge it in just a minute. But then it says, which mountain ranges continue Cordillera just south of the United States? So I'm going to, okay, so here we go. We have the Rocky Mountains, and then here is Sierra Nevada. So those are our Cordillera here. They run parallel to each other. And then the question is, which ones are just south of the United States? So we're going to come down south, right? Remember, we have our directionals, north, south, east, and west. I don't see compass rose on this map. Okay, so we're going to go south anyway. And as we move further south from the Rocky Mountains, we see more mountains here. And as we move south from Sierra Nevada, we also see more mountains here. So remember our elevation, the higher the elevation, it turns this more brown kind of color. So that's also how we know we're talking about mountain areas. On maps, typically mountains are a tan or a brown kind of color so that you can see it in color, and then you can see that it's labeled on there as well. And so as we move down here further, we see Sierra Madre Oriental and Sierra Madre Occidental. And so those are answers for the next question here. Sierra Madre Occidental, Sierra Madre Oriental. Give me a second to get this right again. Hold on. Here we go. Okay. And then as you're typing that in, I am going to move the text back to our page 84, where we're going to continue answering questions under Mexico's mountains and plateaus. And again, we're going to be looking under a heading that's called Landforms and Climate. So number one, what two landforms make up most of central Mexico? And central Mexico is made up mainly of mountains and plateaus. These landforms yield rich resources that contribute to Mexico's economy. So our two landforms are mountains and plateaus. And then we're going to look under landforms and climate. And so the first one is to define peninsula. And it does define peninsula in the text, but it's a little bit different definition than what I want you to add here. So that's why it has an asterisk by it, so it's different from the text. So I will begin reading. Mexico includes two peninsulas, narrow strips of land that extend out into a body of water, the Baja in western Mexico and the Yucatan in the southeast. Mexico is shaped like an upside-down triangle with the mountains of Sierra Madre running along each side. The Mexican plateau lies between the two ranges of the Sierra Madres. Mexicans call the southern area of the plateau the Mesa Central and the northern area the Mesa del Norte. A mesa, the Spanish word for table, is a high, flat plateau. Mexico's highest mountain, Volcano Pico de Orizaba, rises at the southern edge of the plateau. So down below, also, I put in here an image of the Yucatan Peninsula, which we just read about in the text, but you'll see that this part comes out, and so that there is water surrounding three sides of that land. So the body of land surrounded by water on three sides is a peninsula. So two of Mexico's peninsulas, we have the Baja, it's actually called the Baja California, and we have the Yucatan, which I have here in that image. So the Baja California Peninsula and the Yucatan Peninsula. And now I have another image down here as well of the Baja California Peninsula there on Mexico as well. So our next question here, what are the two mountain ranges that run through central Mexico? And there's a map on page 85. So we're going to go ahead and look at that map on page 85. Here we go. So this map, it's a little bit less clear because it's not a physical map. So it doesn't show our elevations as easily, but we actually already looked at this on the map on page 78. So here we have Sierra Madre Oriental and Sierra Madre Occidental. So they're the same ones that we already answered up above in the number 3 question. And then again here, I'm going to point out the Yucatan Peninsula right here and the Baja California Peninsula right there. Okay, so our answer is Sierra Madre Oriental and Sierra Madre Occidental. So once again, you have some bullet points on your notes to go ahead and put those in. And then what is the high flat land that lies between these mountain ranges? And we've got it here that we read as well, that the Mexican plateau lies between the two ranges of the Sierra Madres. So the Mexican plateau. So we're going to define plateau on the next slide here. And then I'll also show you an image of what a plateau looks like. And we actually already have read the information that we needed to answer the following questions. So I'm going to go ahead and switch the page. And a plateau, let me get this over here again, It doesn't specifically give us the definition here. It just talks about the Mexican plateau. So I'm going to give you that information, that this is a plain that's high above the sea level, usually a cliff on both sides. So down here below, I have an image of what a plateau looks like. Okay. Kind of like a mountain, right? It's got these cliffs on the sides, but it doesn't come up to a steep point. It's flat on the top. Or it has plains on the top. You could use that as well. So another name for a plateau. Here we go. They call this southern area the mesa. So mesa is a Spanish word for table. So mesa is another word for a plateau. So you can kind of get that idea, right? When you look at this image, that this could kind of be like a table. It sets up high and it's flat on the top. And then Mexico's highest mountain we've got here. So Mexico's highest mountain is Pico de Orizaba. And I am going to continue reading here. Mexico City, well, let's look at the question. How can a volcano benefit people? Mexico City, the capital, is on the Mesa Central. The city is home to more than 20 million people, almost 20% of the population of Mexico. Some areas of the Mesa Central have been subject to volcanic activity, which results in rich volcanic soil. This soil helps to produce crops that are important to Mexico's economy, such as sugarcane, corn, and wheat. So how can a volcano benefit people? It creates rich volcanic soil for growing crops. So our next question there is, why is it cooler on the Mesa Central? So I will continue reading here. Northern Mexico sits on the temperate zone, and the southern half lies in the tropics. On the high Mesa Central, climate is modified or made less extreme by a higher elevation. Temperatures there are cooler than along lower coastal areas. So our answer to this is that there is a higher elevation. And we're going to be talking a lot more about altitude and elevation in this unit. And you should in general know that when you move higher up on a landform, it's going to get colder the higher you go up. So then we have resources and agriculture, and we're going to list 4 non-renewable natural resources that Mexico provides. And then you're going to underline the richest of the 4 because you don't have the easy ability to circle in your notes. So you're going to underline. On mine, I circled. So I'm going to read resources and agriculture. Mexico's mountains hold resources such as copper, silver, and zinc. However, the richest resource is the oil found in and around the Gulf of Mexico. Over 3 million barrels are produced each day. We're going to go ahead and answer that before we move on because we're going to find the next information that goes on the next slide. So very simply, we have copper, silver, zinc, and oil. And the richest of the 4 is oil. So copper, silver, zinc, and oil. And then you are going to underline the richest of the 4. So on the next question, you'll see that I did a letter A that's in blue. This is a fill in the blank. Just like some of our other assignments that I've given to you, I've done a number that I highlighted and made a little bit bigger and bolder for you to put in your answer. So your answer, you are going to type in after the letter A, and it should come up in a blue color and look a little bit different than the rest of your text then. So it kind of sticks out. So number 2, blank is important to Mexico is what we're looking for. So I'm going to continue to read here. Agriculture is also important to the country. Farmers in the north grow cotton, wheat, and fruit, and they also raise cattle. To the south, farms produce sugarcane, coffee, and tropical fruits. Many rural Mexicans live by subsistence farming, growing just enough food to feed their families. This type of farming occurs mostly in the southern highlands. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and switch the page here, and agriculture is important to Mexico. And what is grown in northern Mexico? So we've got these listed out here as well. I didn't put bullets for some of these because they're shorter answers, so you can just put commas in between them. Mine, again, is going to look a little bit different than yours. I've like separated them into boxes, but you can just put commas between your answers. So farmers in the north grow cotton, wheat, fruit, and they also raise cattle. So cotton, fruit, wheat, cattle. Now, again, the question says what is grown, right? Cattle are cows. They don't grow from the ground, obviously, but they raise cattle, which means that they are growing, right? So that's going to be included in products that they have in northern Mexico, agriculture products. So, I guess I should put this in there too. Think about that if we've, and I'm sure we've talked about this before, but agriculture is farming, okay? So that is what that means in case you are unsure. Let's see if I can. We'll make this also blue. Okay, so farming or agriculture is important to Mexico. All right, so then what is grown in southern Mexico? To the south, farms produce sugarcane, coffee, and tropical fruits. Sugarcane, coffee, tropical fruit. And then we're going to define subsistence farming. So subsistence farming means growing just enough to feed their family. We'll talk about subsistence farming in other places too, but I compare subsistence farming to having a garden at your own home. That most people in their garden that they have at their home, they work on the garden themselves, right? The families are the ones who are tending to the garden, and then you are also consuming the vegetables that are grown in your garden. You maybe have some extra that you can or you freeze for the winter, or maybe you share it with some neighbors or some other family friends, but typically you're growing it for yourself. You're not making a living off of the things that you're growing in your garden. And so that's what we're talking about here. They grow their food just to feed their family, basically. And where does the subsistence farming take place? This type of farming occurs mostly in the southern highlands. So this is in rural areas. Where there's not a lot of people. So out in the country, there's not markets nearby. So it makes it more of a necessity for them to grow their own food because it's going to be more difficult for them to travel to get their own food. And our number 7 question, what are the only 2 natural resources on the map on page 85 that were not listed in the text of page 84? So we have listed up there cotton, fruit, wheat, cattle, sugarcane, coffee, and tropical fruit. So we need to look at the map on page 85. So I am going to flip over there again, and I'm gonna move me so that you can see here. So I'm gonna also move this over so we can see what we wrote here. So we have cattle, right, was right there. Citrus fruit. We have fruit, right? And we have tropical fruit. So I think that is covered. Coffee, we have. Corn. Do we see corn listed? Nope, I don't see corn. So corn's going to be one of our answers. And then let's see. The question is about natural resources, right? So fish, we're not talking about agriculture necessarily here, but we're talking about natural resources. So we have fish as well. We have sugarcane is listed up here. We have wheat that's listed up here. And then copper, oil, silver, and zinc are also listed on our previous page. Those are our, how was that written? Non-renewable natural resources. Okay, so those are our non-renewable natural resources that we did also list out. So corn and fish were the only things that we didn't list from this on page 85. Okay, so we are going to pause at this point. We are not done with this lesson yet. We will continue it next time.